Thank you very much for joining us. I am Sophia Wanuna. Now, ICT is about technology and tools that people use to share, distribute, gather information, and to communicate one to another, one-on-one, or in groups through use of computers and interconnected computer networks. And with us today in studio are what I would call masters of technology to talk to us about a project that they will be launching soon, and that is Kamau Gashigi and Paul English. Thank you very much for joining us. Pleasure to have you with us in studio. So let's start with you and the work that you have done, Paul, in the past in the US, kayak.com. I found that very interesting when I read about it. So tell us more about that.
Sure. My most recent company, kayak.com, is an internet travel company. And we help people search for hotels and flights all over the world. Right. And the company is about 6.5 years old right now, but it's become very popular in the U.S.
Yeah, has received a lot of accolades, like Forbes and all that, has thumbed it.
Yeah, we've won a lot of awards. The big difference between Kayak and some of the other travel sites, we've become known for speed and simplicity. You ask a question, we give you an answer. Okay. No clutter.
What inspired you to have that, to make a difference? Because there are many travel...
Yeah, there are many. In this case, my co-founder, Steve Hafner, had created another travel website called Orbitz. Right. And he left Orbitz, and we talked and came up with the idea of creating a travel search engine that was based on the search component, not so much the purchase.
Okay. And also what I found interesting was another of your projects about customer care and making it more personal.
Yes.
Yeah?
That was another pet peeve of mine. I'm even at Kayak, they sometimes call me the Chief Customer Service Officer because I love doing customer service. We have... like at Kayak, we have a big red phone that has a loud ringer. Yes. And when customers call, I will jump over desk to get to that phone really quickly. So before Kayak, or early in Kayak, I used to hate when I would call my mobile provider or my bank, and they said, press 1 for this, press 2 for that, enter your password here. And after a while, I'm like, come on, can I just talk to a human? Yes. So I created a website that let people, I published sort of secret phone numbers that let you figure out how to get directly to an operator.
Okay. And we should have that here in Kenya, I think.
Yeah.
Safaricom has tried, I think, with something like that. You call and directly get hooked up to somebody already. Because really press 1, press 2, go to 0 if you want to go back to the other stuff. I think that's fabulous. Congratulations for that. And you've been working, you're at the University of Nairobi, the Science and Technology Park. How is it a park and not a department like every other we hear about?
Well, the thing is that we're trying to move away from the normal business of universities, which is teaching and research. Yes. We'll continue doing those, but we want to make sure that whatever the products of those processes are, get into the marketplace. So what happens typically is a lot of research is done at universities and it ends up in libraries, and it doesn't really help as much as it could if we were able to make sure it gets into the marketplace. So a Science and Technology Park is called a park because it's a real estate development. Ultimately, you want to have the research activities being close to where you have incubation. So you may have a professor doing some research in a certain area. It gets to the point where the proof of concept is done and it's ready now to be tested in the marketplace. So they're put up in the incubator. They're running as a small company. It's just like you take an egg and put it into an incubator, give it all the environment that it needs, the right environment in order for it to hatch. And so we give business development services. We help people to write their business plans and so on, because typically the researcher doesn't know much about business. And then ultimately we try and attract funding towards these businesses and so that they can launch. And so we're at the very early stages of our Science and Technology Park. It's the first one in Kenya. And so the project that we're going to be talking about is one of our incubated companies at present, or project at present.
But how has it been so far? The projects you've been working with, the students, how is it working out so far?
It's been working really well, and also not very well. I'll start with the latter. The reason why I say that is that the community here, the research community, isn't very used to, the professors now I'm talking about, they're not very used to the idea of the produce of what they're doing going into the marketplace. So trying to sell it to a lot of our professors and so on has been a little bit difficult, because they just are not quite used to that idea yet, and there's issues even of trust. If you have a very good idea, who will own the intellectual property? So we we have a policy for that now. So we ourselves are having to mature to the point where we're ready to actually do what's necessary. Yes. We presently have a policy that gives the researcher 40% and the university keeps 60%. Okay. And so that's very generous if you look at what goes on around the world. So ultimately, the path that we've taken is to try to bring anybody who has a good technology idea that doesn't necessarily belong to university into our incubator, start giving them assistance and help them to get into the marketplace. Okay. So that's been very successful. We have about 15 companies. One of the more famous projects that we've done, now it's going to be more famous because we're on TV, but the Kenya Army has a bullets factory in Eldoret, and the machines weren't working very well. These are they're numerical control machines, very precise, precision machines for making bullets, and basically, they were looking around to see whether they can repair them, and the people who they bought them from in Belgium said, you better just buy new. And they got experts from other countries around the world who all weren't able to fix them. But we sent a team of engineers there from our science and technology park who fixed completely the problem. And not only that, they put a computer interface on the machines. So the machines, when they were finished, were better than they were when they were new. Oh. And so the Army is very happy about that. Okay. And the young men who did that are now, very successful. They've been able to do a lot of other jobs besides. Right. But besides that, we have a project on biogas. So a very inexpensive way of having biogas. Just have one cow, and instead of spending hundreds of thousands, which is typically how much biogas will cost if you have to dig a deep hole, you have a little bag that you just put onto the surface of the ground, fill it up with some cow dung, and on day 3 you have gas, you're cooking, and you can even run a generator. So the guy who did that is not from University of Nairobi, but we're helping him to refine that technology, and that's the value we give to him, and also funding. Okay. And so there are many others, and but the wireless project is the one probably that's most exciting.
Most exciting. Yeah, let's get to that now. You're based in the State, you're here, you guys came together and you have this project. Before we get to the project, what inspired you working together?
I think, so I do some work with MIT and other universities in Boston, and one of the projects we're looking at is how to extend wireless even in Boston. And Boston has very good coverage. For example, at my house in Boston, I have a 60 megabit connection that I pay about $40 a month. So compared to Kenyan standards, it's an extraordinary connection. And there are other countries in the world that even have connections much better than we do in Boston. But as good of a connection we have in Boston, there are people who can't afford to be online. Right. And I've just seen it's very clear to the benefit people to be online. What I'm interested in is finding some other areas of innovation, such as the University of Nairobi, where there's enough resources to try experimenting with new models to allow students who might not otherwise have resources to give them a mechanism by which they can go online and they can do experiments and they can create companies and share information.
Okay. So you guys started then to work on this project. Tell us more about it. Yes.
Well, maybe I'll just give a little bit more background to what he said, and that is that he has a connection with MIT. We do as well. The Science and Technology Park right now is operating from a Fab Lab, and that stands for Fabrication Lab. And some people say Fabulous Lab. They're very nice.
Yeah, fabrication almost sounds wrong. Fabrication.
Well, yeah, but I guess that's the real purpose of the lab, is to fabricate stuff. In fact, the theme is how to make almost anything.
Right.
That phrase is the name of a course at MIT. Oh. And so there's a professor there who teaches this course and realized very quickly that the machines that he's using have become a lot cheaper than they were before. They're computer numerical control machines. And you can buy, the entire lab costed us 9 million shillings, including shipping it over. And the Ministry of Higher Education, Science and Technology bought it for us. Okay. So that's a lab that's been designed at MIT, and there's about 45 to 50 around the world. So that's the connection we have to MIT, and similarly he has a connection to MIT. And so that's how we really came to know about this particular project. Yeah.
Okay, so what are the plans? What is the big idea and plan to do? What exactly do you want to do? What do you want to achieve, especially with the Kenyan market and our students?
Yep, so the main thing with Join Africa is I look at the whole concept of internet access, that there's 3 types of people who are involved. Right. There's the government, who has to legislate and in part to provide equal access so that everyone gets access to the internet and technology. There's the industry themselves, who has to build all the towers and build the capability and eventually let market forces drive prices down. And then the third constituency, which is one that I think is overlooked, are the students and the young entrepreneurs, and really what is their role in helping spread the internet. And that's the Join Africa project that Kamau and I are working on together, is focused on the role of students in spreading these networks, particularly to areas where they have not Ben networks or to students and others who could not afford traditional internet access.
Okay. How is the network access here at the University of Nairobi?
Well, it's very good. We have a company called Kennet, which is funded by World Bank, that supplies bandwidth to all the higher education institutes. And so we have about 100 megabytes per second. That's the rate for the university as a whole. So that's good enough for us for now. It will improve in time, I know, because we have these 3 cables that have come, and there'll be more in the future. But anyway, I guess the main thing is really that with that kind of a connection, and Kennet being the provider, we're able now to spread that to like campuses that don't have wireless connectivity. Right. So presently, we're going to be actually piloting this particular project, this technology that we've been developing at the University of Nairobi at some of our campuses. Okay. Besides that, there's a trial that we've been running that he's actually been funding through his organization.
Yeah, I was actually just going to get to that.
Sorry, okay, at Mountain View Estate. And so again, we're using it's a research project. So we're using the same we're using 1 inch's bandwidth in this case, and we're reaching people in their homes and so on, and then looking to see how it works. And Paul will tell you a little bit more about the model that we're looking at in terms of how we're trying to see the consumers use this.
And please do. How are you planning to see?
Sure. I mean, the experiment we're running in Mountain View and soon in other areas is one where there'll be 2 levels of internet access. There's free access for those who cannot afford it. And that might be a slow version of the internet, but it's important that it's the full internet, that we give people access for research and for publishing information. And then there's a more premier access that's higher speed. And the idea is that people who can afford to pay that, which still will be very low rates, will subsidize and fund the free access for others. And those concepts of what's the payment mechanism for the premier access, what's really exactly the difference between the paid and free, those are things we're working out in Mountain View and elsewhere.
Okay. But it's something that you feel will be feasible and workable and easy for people to grasp, that who you're going to be working with?
We've already piloted it in smaller settings, like we hosted something called the Maker Fair at the University of Nairobi not too long ago, 3 months ago. And so the entire, we call it the Great Court at the University of Nairobi. The whole Great Court was covered with this technology. We've done some trials at the halls, which were very good. So yeah, we're confident it will work.
Okay.
The other thing about this technology, I just want to say again, is what we're building is free. It's what's called open source software. We're not building proprietary technology that we own. It's more like in a university environment when you do research and you publish a paper. That paper can be used by anyone. We're taking the same view to this wireless internet project where the hardware components we're using, the internet routers, and all the software to control them and control this mesh and control the billing, we're putting that all out there in public domain because we ourselves do not want to build all of these little miniature networks across all of Kenya. But the examples we build will teach others how to build projects like this elsewhere in Kenya and other cities.
Okay. Is that the main profit of this, the main
it's really,
advantage of having
as
this?
Kamau was saying, the Joint Africa Initiative is itself a bit of an NGO. We ourselves are not looking to make any money. What we want is a self-sustaining model where the local entrepreneur, by extending this mesh network and having it cover new neighborhoods and new areas and new schools, there'll be enough money coming in from the people who need high-speed access that local entrepreneur can make some money.
Okay. Is it just limited to the students at Nairobi?
Not at all. In fact, as he says, it's open source. That means that anybody who goes onto the website, for example, that's been put up, will be able to download some of the information on how the technical details of how to do it, so that they wouldn't even need to come to us, really. But we're putting up a small consortium which will be serving as sort of the custodian of the technology here, in a sense. That's simply to make it easier for people to take off that's all. And so we're encouraging our own students from other universities, people who are not even students anywhere, just who understand wireless networks and want to set up a network somewhere. And the idea, as Paul is saying, is to have a lot of different small ISPs, so to speak, people providing internet service for a small fee, and so it's a business for them, they can make a living, and they're not charging too much to their customers. It's a very good model.
Right. What do you see it doing it for Kenya in terms of ICT, where we are now and where we hope to go? What do you see it doing for us as a country?
I think it will improve the ability of researchers to get their ideas out there, to benefit on other people's ideas, and to create these small businesses of their own where they might become software developers and build applications they can sell into financial industry, real estate industry. It could be very simple, like creating web pages or web applications. But really, in communities like this in the U.S., when we give access, the people who build access don't themselves predict what people will do with it. In many cases, it's the students or the entrepreneurs who will learn how to use communications technology to invent new types of products and services.
Okay. And of some of the beautiful work we've seen that you've done in the States, is there any other projects you intend to work with Kamau or any other person here in Kenya?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm very excited about the work done here in the University of Nairobi and with Kamau's team. And I plan to the project we're doing here, which the students at MIT that I've been working with and funding have done a prior project in Afghanistan, and we want to make sure that as we learn with each deployment, that learning gets published on our website for free, and as we take on additional projects in other cities across Africa and across other continents and countries, that each experiment learns from the prior experiment. Okay. So we're just trying to find what is the role of student in helping spread internet access to other students so they can make money and advance their training.
Great, I wouldn't have said it any better. Finally, how can people get this information if they want more details? You said you're working on putting up a website, so if people want to work with you, join what you're doing, how do they find you?
Well, let me just start by saying that this evening we're hosting an event at Norfolk where Paul will be talking to the local ICT community about what he's doing and about this project as well. Right. And we have the PS Bitangenemo very likely will be there as well. Okay. Now, besides that and beyond that, we're going to be having, as you say, a website that will give all the information for this, and we want to be getting a lot more coverage in the media as well so that people are aware of it. There's places like the iHub where a lot of the kinds of people who will be looking for kind of congregate besides all the university campuses. And so we'll be through Facebook, through all the means that we know that such people normally use, and most young people are using these more and more. People find out the information. Okay. So it should be quite. They can also find you at the University of Nairobi. Where the University of Nairobi in the building next to the Norfolk Hotel.
Okay. Thank you very much.
The website that we'll be publishing together and also with an organization in Kigali will be called Join Africa. So it'll be called joinafrica.org. Okay. And that will help document all of the projects in different cities across Africa.
And period for it to be set up is what? Approximately for the website to be up and running?
Probably in the next few weeks. Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thanks very much.
It has been a pleasure
Thank you so
to have you with us. We wish you the very, very best. I think it's a great project, and you go fly and go for the prize. Thank you very much for joining us, and do keep it K24 for more of our programming.